Hello, this is Sarah V, and today I am going to be making a dress that has a jumper that goes over it. And the pattern for that is Simplicity 5308. And I think I'm going to split this into two videos. And I feel like I should start with the bottom first, which is like the base layer, which is the dress. It's just a shirtwaist dress. And then do the jumper that goes over it in a separate video, so the video is not super long. My fabric for the dress is the shirtwaist dress, that is this Halloween fabric that I picked up at Joann last year. And I have 4 yards of it, which I think is enough. And then the jumper will be made of this corduroy, hopefully, if I can fit it on with all the nap going in the same direction. And it'll go like that. But yeah, that is the plan. Unfortunately, I am still procrastinating making the little kitty pumpkin faux 1950s dirndl. But I still haven't done the mock-up. I cut it out, and I have to sew it. And I hate doing mock-ups. So maybe I'm just gonna pivot to this project, and hopefully by the time I finish this one, my procrastination will be over, and I'll get both of these in October. Starting things off, I opened up the pattern and found out that there was not a back bodice piece. That was disappointing to find out. So I took the bodice piece, the back bodice piece from the shirtwaist dress I made for Shirtwaist September and modified it to work with this pattern. It did end up working, which is good, but I had to change 2 darts into 1 dart and lower the shoulder down because on the other dress, the back shoulder becomes like a small yoke almost, which goes farther than a normal shoulder seam. I wasn't being super fussy with this. I was kind of just trying to get stuff on there because I did have a cold when I was doing this, and some of my choices weren't the best choices, and I like to blame that on the fact that I had a cold and wasn't thinking as clearly as I could have been. But I added I think 5/8 of an inch to the bottom of the front so that it was the same length at the side as the back piece. And I know that the back piece is the right length because I used it on my shirtwaist dress from September. I also added extra length to the cuffs because I didn't want them to be too tight. And that helped, and I also made it like a regular cuff instead of cuffs that can be used with little cuff links, just because of the buttons that I had. And I did not cut the tie on the bias, I just cut it on straight of grain and it was fine. And I did add, I think, 2 extra inches to the sleeve so that they wouldn't be too short. And that all went fine. For the skirt, I didn't use the pieces, and instead, because they were just rectangles, I just ripped the fabric to the length I wanted them to be, and then transferred over for the front where the continuous lap needed to be, so that it would line up with the bodice. And I also ended up cutting pockets for this. out of that yellow poly cotton that I had in my last video that I used for the lining of my vest. I marked my darts how I usually mark it, by just putting the pins through and then pulling the fabric apart to find where the pin is at. And then I marked all those with my chalk pen. And then for the back, I had shoulder darts, which I didn't really account for in the patterning. And it was fine because the shoulder was longer than the shoulder of the bodice front, so then I just figured out how much different it was and just drew it in, and it was fine. Over at my machine, I am sewing in all of the darts, and I am just tying those dart tips off by hand. And that just gives it, usually makes it a smoother dart versus if you backstitch there. But on heavier fabrics, I do backstitch. I kind of wish I had been more present in this video. But I was also sick and just kind of wanted to sit in my pajamas, so there's that, I guess. Now I am stitching in the shoulder seams, followed by doing the continuous laps on the sleeves, and I like to do it with the piece of fabric underneath it just so I can see where that split is so I don't miss the very middle part. After sewing that in, I just fold the fabric over so that the split in the sleeve is all covered up, and then I edge stitch it from the top and catch the side I folded over in it. And now I am sewing the tie together. I sewed the neck, and now I am sewing it up until where I'm supposed to keep it open so that I can get it on the dress. Now that that is sewn, I have to turn it out, and I'm just kind of mashing my thumb in there because I don't feel like getting up and finding my chopstick. And it's fine because it's wide enough that I can just jam my thumb in there, and I'm just fixing the corner with a pin instead of doing something proper. Now I am sewing the collar in. The tie, that is. And I did have to ease in the back a little bit because I never got rid of those neck darts from the previous pattern. It was fine. Life goes on. And now I'm just stitching up that middle part and just encasing the rest of that seam in. I double checked to make sure that the tie folds over in the back before stitching this through both layers of the tie because I didn't want to hand sew it in. That's as simple as that. I just didn't want to hand sew it in, so I just sewed through all the layers. But thankfully, this tie's wide enough that I can sew it in and you're not going to see it anyway. And now I am running those gathering stitches along the bottom of the sleeves. Here I am just sewing the gathered sleeve into the cuff, and then I will be sewing up the sides of the cuff, And then after sewing up the sides of the cuff, I can flip it right side out and turn the edge inside and stitch it from the outside so that the cuff is all nice and clean with no hand stitching to keep that raw edge inside. I think this is footage of me sewing the sleeve in, but I'm not sure because it decided to autofocus on my hand instead of focusing on the fabric, but I'm pretty sure that's the sleeve. And now I am sewing the continuous lap for the front of the skirt, and that closes with snaps at the end. And this is just the same thing as what I did for the sleeves, just longer. And now I'm sewing in the pockets, and I've been sewing the pockets in this way for a while. It keeps them inside and I don't have to worry about the bottom of the pocket as much, poking out the side seam as much as I used to. Now I am back to gathering, and I am gathering the edge of all of my skirt pieces, and now I am sewing it to the bodice. And now I am just doing the edge stitching to keep the seam allowance up inside the skirt. And now I'm putting the buttonholes in. And for the second buttonhole on the front, it was a little too far in, and then I tried to fix it and I just kind of made it ugly. So there's that. It's unfortunate, but at least there's a pattern on this, so it should distract from it a little bit. And also, I don't know what I was doing with these different camera angles. It's just like, I don't know why I couldn't remember where I usually put my camera for these side shots, but sorry about that. And I think that's why it would start to focus on my hand. I don't know. I was sick. I'm just gonna keep blaming it on that. Anyway, after this, I did put the buttons on and the snaps. And I also put a skirt hook at the waistband. Not the waistband, but like at the waist seam to keep it closed. But I think I might have put it too far in, so I might have to adjust that later. But I did not make the belt. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing a reveal because she needs the hem done, but I want to wait for the hem so that I know how much to shorten it or hem it so that it looks good with the little jumper that goes over it. But yeah, I can show you what she looks like. Let's back it up here. Very unhelpful. Let's move this. Ah! She's pretty cute, I think. Move this down so you can see more of her. She's pretty cute. I also still need to make the belt for it. But yeah. Halfway there. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to see more fall sewing content, please subscribe. If you'd like to see what I'm up to today, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Sarah V Sews Vintage. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.